Logan was released just under 2 weeks ago, which means as far as the internet's concerned, it's now completely irrelevant, but I've only just got around to seeing it. I don't know why it took me so long. Maybe it's because I'm a bit of a squeamish person, especially when it comes to blood. So I was a little bit nervous, but I saw it and I was fine. So maybe I'm a lot better at dealing with blood than I used to be. Did I cut myself? Roll the titles! Kapow! Logan is a superhero movie that feels absolutely nothing like a superhero movie, but it is a good movie. It is incredibly depressing, but it's depressing for the right reasons, unlike previous X-Men movies. Now, I'm pretty sure most of the people watching this video have already seen Logan by now, but I will still be keeping this review spoiler-free because I feel like it's the polite thing to do. And if Wolverine has taught me anything, it's how to be polite. But to give a quick plot synopsis, Wolverine and Professor X are done. They are just done. They are living in a world in which they are the last of the mutants, and they're fed up, they're old, and they have just had enough. And then they stumble across Laura, who is a new mutant, and hijinks ensue. Hijinks might be a bit of an understatement, actually. But the movie does a really good job of focusing on these three characters. It is very clear that this is Hugh Jackman's last performance as Wolverine because he gives it his all. The same can be said of Patrick Stewart. To see what has become of Professor X is heart-wrenching. And part of the reason for that, I feel, is because it is very realistic. This whole movie is grounded in realism, at least more so than the other movies. And I was thoroughly impressed by Daphne Keane because it is hard to come across a good child actor, especially a good child actor who can play a realistic killing machine. But I thought she did a really good job. In fact, if I met her in real life, I'd probably be pretty scared. But I do also find little girls pretty scary, so make of that what you will. I blame Angelica. I love the chemistry between all of these characters, especially the chemistry between Wolverine and Professor X. It is very clear that they have been through a lot together, specifically a lot of hard times. And it's sad because all they really have left is each other. All of their friends are gone. And it is a really depressing thing. And to add to that depression even more, yay, they are really fed up with each other throughout the majority of this movie. And as is natural in their situation, because they have been through so many hard things together, and they are both just fed up with the world and with each other, but at the same time, they still really care for each other, and it is a really deep relationship, and I think it's portrayed so well by both Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart. I also really enjoyed the father-daughter type relationship that Wolverine had with Laura. I thought that was played off very well, and I enjoyed watching those characters bond and grow together throughout the course of the movie. I thought that was very well done. Now, there were other characters in this movie, but none of them really stood out to me, except Stephen Merchant as Caliban. And the reason he stood out to me is because when I heard that Stephen Merchant was going to be in this, I thought he was going to be a comic relief type character, but he is most definitely not a comic relief character, and I was very impressed by Stephen Merchant's acting because I've never really seen him outside of a comedy setting before. I mean, because Caliban was played by Stephen Merchant, I did keep picturing him dancing to Single Ladies by Beyonce, but that's not really the movie's fault, so I'm gonna let that one go. And for the record, I would not have been opposed to that being in the movie. However, that might have distracted from the tone just a little bit. Speaking of which, there is some humor in this movie, but not a lot. However, I think the balance is good, because you need a little bit of humor, but too much would have distracted from the tone of the movie, like I said before. Now let's talk about the action. It was good. As soon as the movie begins, it is very clear that Wolverine means business. Because this movie was intended for an older audience, the action is a lot more realistic, but it's appropriate, and it's fitting, and it's paced quite well. It's not just violent for the sake of being violent. It is appropriate to the story. Obviously, when the action begins, it is quite epic, but there are a few times where it goes on for just a little bit too long and you're like, okay, I get it. they're very good at slashing people up. But that doesn't happen too much. The pacing in this movie is really, really good. One thing I will say though, is that the henchmen in this movie, they're just really, really stupid. I mean, seriously, Wolverine and Laura are chopping up people left, right, and center, and the henchmen just keep on coming. I mean, they get an A for diligence, but an F for common sense. I think one of the greatest strengths this movie has, though, is that it's unpredictable. Like I said in the beginning, this does not feel like a superhero movie, and because of that, it's not very predictable like a lot of other superhero movies are. I was constantly on the edge of my seat not knowing what was going to happen. Honestly, it doesn't even feel like an X-Men movie, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. What's important is that the characters of Logan and Professor X feel like the characters of Logan and Professor X. Overall, this was a great movie. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see Logan and Professor X old and withered and fed up with the world. And it was heartbreaking to see them at such a vulnerable point in their life. But that's what made the movie so good. I never knew where the movie was taking me, but that was great because that's exactly how the characters in the movie felt. They never seemed to know where they were going, and that was part of the thrill, that was part of the excitement, that was part of the adventure. Now, I'm not sure yet how I'm going to rate movies on this channel. One thing I want to do is, instead of rating movies individually, I want to rank them in their respective movie series. So for example, instead of giving Logan a score, I would rank it in terms of the other X-Men movies. But obviously, I haven't reviewed any of the X-Men movies yet, and I'm not entirely sure if I am going to, or if I'm going to use that ranking system. But for now, I will give Logan an 8 out of 10. I do wonder though what the future holds for the X-Men movies now that Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart are gone. I mean, even though Logan seemed like a very fitting end for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Patrick Stewart's Professor X, that doesn't stop the fact that the X-Men franchise has just lost its two biggest stars. Now, this is probably wishful thinking, but it seems like a pretty good time for Fox to get a little bit friendly with Disney, in the same way that Sony has become a little bit friendly with Disney. I'm just saying that if the X-Men were to join the Avengers, that would probably fill the Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart-shaped holes in our hearts. I'm not saying you have to give Disney all the rights. They probably don't want all the rights. Because let's be honest, if Fox tried to give the rights to Deadpool to Disney, Disney wouldn't know what to do with that. Disney doesn't want Deadpool, okay? Disney's like, you know what, Fox, you can keep Deadpool. You can give us some of the X-Men, but maybe you keep Deadpool. But I think it would be a good time for Disney and Fox to collaborate. That might be a great way to breathe new life into the franchise. I doubt it'll happen, but you know, a geek can dream. But regardless, thank you for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed my review of Logan. Let me know what you would like to see in regards to the future of the X-Men movies. And be sure to tune in tomorrow for another Geek Day Weekday. Oh, that's right, I forgot to get a bandage for my finger.